Hey, this is Tyler Boronski. Thanks so much for clicking on this video. Now, before I start the interview, though, I want to give a quick shout out to Malevin, aka Stranger_Things on Twitter. She's the winner of my giveaway that I was holding on Twitter. Guys, go show her some support. Give her a follow on Twitter. She's a big Stranger Things supporter, and I really appreciate that, her supporting the show and anything Stranger Things related. I worked as a background actor for the show, and obviously Jennifer had a much bigger role in season 2 as Max's mom. And I think we can both agree that Stranger Things is such a fun project to work on. What the Duffers and Sean Levy have created is really special and such a phenomenon. So thanks so much for supporting, and enjoy the rest of the interview.
And welcome back, everyone. My name's Tyler Boronski. You're watching my YouTube channel where I interview celebrities from the entertainment industry. This is a pretty fun one today. She plays Susan Hargrove, maybe better known as Mad Max's mom in the second season of Stranger Things. Jennifer Marshall, thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Tyler. I appreciate it.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. And I'm such a big fan of yours, such a big fan of your story, prior to Stranger Things, prior to acting. I mean, you spent 5 years in the military as an aviation logistics specialist for the U.S. Navy before, switching over to the entertainment industry, which you don't see that conversion so much. Can you talk about maybe when you first retired from the Navy, trying to get into the entertainment industry? Entertainment industry is all about connections and network. So what was that like, trying to get your foot into the door for the first time?
Tyler, it's so hard. Like you said, it's all about who you know. So when I separated from the Navy, I was still pretty young. I joined at 17, so I was 22. But oh gosh, it's hard. I started out in Virginia, thankfully, so that's kind of like a tertiary market. Okay. So it's much smaller, and I did know some people, but I did as much TV and film as I could there. I did commercials, and I pretty much did as much stuff as I could there until there was nothing else left to book. I had 4 commercials airing in that market. I had done every TV show. I had shot every film, and I had done every training video at this particular company to where they told my agent, we love Jennifer, but no more Jennifer Marshall. We cannot book her. So got to a point where I told my husband, we have to move because I'm basically unemployable. And that's when we moved to Los Angeles. Wow,
it's a big step for sure.
Yeah, huge.
I mean, and you've done so much acting work besides Stranger Things, but I think people maybe know you now the most from Stranger Things. And since that show's phenomenon after season 1 to season 2, it seemed like everyone's trying to get involved with the show of some sort, regular actual actors and just regular fans, seem like. So 2-part question for you. How did you get that audition opportunity for the show, and your reaction to actually booking the role out of so many, I'm sure, potential other auditions out there from people?
Well, it's funny because I remember being on Facebook and this was the first season, and people were saying, watching Stranger Things, I love it. And I was like, what is this thing? Because it was kind of taking over my Facebook account. And so I told my husband, well, let's watch this because everybody's watching it and I don't want to be, not knowing what people are talking about. And it's about the 80s, and I grew up in the 80s. So yeah, let's watch this. So we binged it, and I was a huge fan, and I loved it, and I loved the young actors on there. And so I had signed with an Atlanta agent, and I think it was probably, I don't even know, it was one of my first 10 auditions with her. And I remember it came across, and it said, we're looking for the mom of Sadie Sink, who plays Max. Yeah. And I was like, Sadie Sink, I remember being a fan of her work on another show called American Odyssey. So I was like, I know Sadie Sink, and I look like Sadie Sink. So I knew that if I did well on this audition, there was a chance that I could book it. So the audition was kind of difficult because there's very limited lines. It's the scene where Billie and Neil are, going in on each other. And so a lot of it was reaction. So my husband was filming the audition with me. And so he's basically like being Billie and Neil, and he's pushing things and hitting things and shoving things and doing the lines and doing the cameras. And he was such a champ. And then when my agent called me, she didn't say I booked it, but she said I pinned it, which basically means there's a certain number of actors that they're kind of putting on hold. Mm-hmm. So I was just it was like dreamland. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this would be nice if I booked it, but you don't want to get excited and then it not work out. So when my agent called me and she said they want to book you, I was like, what? It was like everything was slow motion. And I really didn't realize how big it was until the day after. And I woke up and my phone, because people had stayed up the whole night and binge watched the whole season.
Sure, yeah.
And I woke up at 8 a.m. and my phone, or 8 or 9, and my phone was ding, 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 ding. And that's when it really hit me, like,
you're on the show.
I'm on Stranger Things.
That's kind of crazy to have been a fan of the show the season prior, than actually have a type of role you had, not just any role, like the Max's mom. So that's pretty awesome, and great husband as well too, for doing all that for the self-tape audition.
I mean, he's great. He's not even an actor, and I have a lot of friends who are married to other actors or dating other actors, and they don't even want to do their self-tapes with them. So the fact that my husband does it, he's such a gem. I
love that. I love that story so much. And it's funny you had to do, the audition about the Billie Scene, because, I mean, that's probably in episode 8, right?
Yeah.
Maybe your most featured role, and that's a pretty intense scene. Like you said, Dacre or Billy, I don't know. I always call them by their real names. Billy, I guess, in the show, gets in an argument with your husband in the show, and it's just a lot of intense moments. So can you speak on maybe filming the scenes that day? Because I'm sure in between takes, you guys aren't trying to break the mood or trying to break out a character for a scene like that.
No, definitely not. When I got to set that day, it was funny because it was my first day of filming. And so I showed up super early because I'm a stickler for time management. Being in the military, I'm always early. So I showed up early, and I remember I pulled into the parking lot, and the guy was like, "Who are you? Why are you here so early?" He wasn't even waiting for an answer. And I said, "No, I'm just going to get coffee and come back." And he's like, "Well, get out of here and don't come back closer to your call time." And I was like, okay. So when I came back, he said, "Oh, you're Susan? You're Jennifer?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Oh, it's okay. You can drive over there, and your trailer's there. And you can get some coffee." And I think he didn't realize. I think he thought I was background. Yeah. And he was really great after that. I think he had just had a really hard morning. Sure. But I got there and I went to hair and makeup, and Dacre was there, and he was getting his mullet glued on, which was absolutely hilarious. And he was wonderful. So we were chatting a little bit, and I was kind of just getting to know everybody because I'd never met anybody before. And I went and got my huge hair. And then we went and we started filming the scene, and you definitely don't want to, even though it's funny because Dacre's in there and he's, dancing around and he's smoking and he's, as an actor, I really respected his work. So I was watching him in the scene, and there is a part of you that wants to laugh because you're like, this is kind of ingenious that this guy is doing this a different way each time. But, as an actor, you want to have respect for another actor, so you don't. So we filmed that scene. Oh gosh, we filmed the coverage. I'd say we probably filmed it 10, 12, 14 times because you have to get everybody's coverage. And one of the most wonderful things is Will and Dacre did that scene off camera for my benefit. So when you see all of my reactions, they actually filmed that totally off camera. They were not being filmed, and they did that out of the kindness of their hearts. And Ross and Matt had them do that because they wanted genuine reactions from me. They could have just said, "Okay, Jennifer, this is where he slams him against the shelf. React." So everything you see is genuine, and I just thought that was so kind because they could have said, "I'm not doing this. You have a couple lines. We're the stars, and we're going back to our trailers." But it was such a collaborative effort. It was so wonderful, and I loved working with Ross and Matt. That was one of the best sets I've ever been on, and I've literally been on hundreds of sets.
And that's so funny you talked about Matt and Ross, because I mean, my experience of being around the Duffers, it's like those guys are so ingrained in their work, and I really don't think they sleep or eat. Maybe, I don't know, they're always together too, which is so funny.
They're so passionate about it.
Exactly.
And I loved working with them because they were so hands-on. And I've worked with a ton of directors, and everybody has different directing styles, but they were so hands-on. I never felt, as an actor, sometimes you think, I don't want to bother the director, because some directors are very much, don't talk to me, just do what you do. And you kind of have to funnel requests through the first AD or the second AD. But they are absolutely hands-on, and it was so wonderful working with them for episode 8 and episode 9, and I can't wait to work with them again.
Yeah, I love the Duffers for sure. And final question for you, Jen. Can you talk about maybe the fan experience so far with Stranger Things? Because I don't really know many shows with such a more passionate fan base than Stranger Things. So
Oh,
what has
gosh.
that been like when maybe someone reaches out to you or they find out in person that you're on the show? What's that reaction been like?
It's so funny because I have the most wonderful friends in the world, and I only ask them not to do this if I look terrible, if no makeup and haven't slept. Like, please don't do this, because then people will ask for pictures. But a few people have recognized me outside of this, but I do have some. But it's a big change because Susan is very different from me, and the hair
Different
and the
hairstyle,
makeup,
exactly,
totally different. And people don't expect me to be as tall because Susan's very meek, and I'm 6 feet tall, so that doesn't really translate either. But my friends are wonderful because if they see someone with a Stranger Things shirt on, they'll say, "You like Stranger Things?" And the person will say, "Yeah," and they'll say, "She's on Stranger Things." And the look on people's faces, because they're trying to compute, and you can see the Rolodex of characters going through their head, and most of the time they'll realize that
The hair,
are you Max's? You're Max's mom. You're Max's mom. So they'll realize, and sometimes they don't. But it's just such a wonderful feeling because I love making people happy. And this role has given me an opportunity. I mean, I'm not one of the kids. The kids are the star of the show. But the chances of them meeting the kids without the kids being, surrounded by people and actually getting a photo with the kids it's such a small chance. So getting to meet one of the supporting cast, that could happen. That's a thing. So I love taking pictures with people. I love making little videos for their kids. I love taking pictures with parents who say, "My teenager is such a fan," because oftentimes parents don't get to connect with their teenagers. So if I can help parents connect with their tweens or teens for just that moment as they share the photo, that makes me so incredibly happy.
I love that so much. Yeah, that's such a cool opportunity and uniqueness. Not everyone can do that, have that type of impact that you can have on someone, Awesome. I love that. All right, Jen, last thing, if you can plug any social media, maybe your Instagram or Twitter, where can people find you?
Well, I love Instagram. I feel like it's the most positive social media out there. So, and I am also pretty active on Facebook. I do a lot of Facebook Live. So Facebook is backslash actress Jennifer Marshall, and Instagram is Jen13, Jenn13, JENN13,
Perfect. There you go. And fans, you can follow this YouTube channel, just Tyler Boronski, and same thing on social media. Jen, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me, Tyler. It's been a blast.